Syria is grappling with a devastating civil war. The conflict, now in its 13th year, has left the nation in ruins. Millions have been displaced, cities lie in rubble, and the humanitarian crisis deepens. The recent fall of the Assad regime marks a significant turning point. Yet it also ushers in a period of uncertainty. The path ahead remains unclear. The Syrian people have endured unimaginable suffering. Years of brutal conflict have shattered the country. The fight for control has been fierce and merciless. Many different factions are vying for power. The situation remains complex and volatile. The international community is deeply concerned about the situation. The conflict has far-reaching consequences. It has fueled regional instability and sparked a global refugee crisis. The use of chemical weapons has drawn international condemnation. The world watches with bated breath, hoping for a peaceful resolution. Despite the challenges, there are glimmers of hope. International diplomatic efforts are underway. The focus is on finding a political solution. The goal is a Syrian-led transition to peace and stability. The road to recovery will be long and arduous. However, the Syrian people deserve a chance to rebuild their lives. The Assad regime, once seemingly unyielding, has crumbled. After years of brutal conflict, rebel forces seized control of Damascus. The fall of the capital city marked the end of Bashar al-Assad's reign. It was a momentous occasion, signaling a potential shift in the long and bloody war. The offensive was spearheaded by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, a coalition of rebel groups. Their advance was swift and decisive. They captured key cities, including Aleppo, Hama, and Homs. Government forces, weakened and demoralized, ultimately retreated. The collapse of the regime was sudden and unexpected. Many had believed Assad's grip on power was absolute. His fall from grace is a stark reminder of the unpredictable nature of war. It also raises questions about the future of Syria. With Assad gone, a power vacuum now exists. The question of who will fill it remains unanswered. Various factions are vying for control, each with its own agenda. The international community is watching closely, hoping to influence the transition to a new government. The Syrian conflict has triggered one of the worst humanitarian crises in recent history. Millions have been displaced from their homes. Families have been torn apart. The human cost of this war is immeasurable. The recent upsurge in violence has exacerbated the displacement crisis. Over 1 million people have fled their homes in just the past few weeks. The majority come from Aleppo, Idlib, and Hama areas that have witnessed intense fighting. They are desperate for safety, shelter, and basic necessities. The influx of refugees is overwhelming neighboring countries. Lebanon, Jordan, and Turkey are already struggling to cope with previous waves of displacement. Resources are stretched thin. The international community must step up its efforts to provide aid and support. The plight of these displaced Syrians is heart-wrenching. They have lost everything, their homes, their livelihoods, and often their loved ones. The trauma of war will leave an enduring scar on their lives. The world must not turn a blind eye to their suffering. The Syrian conflict is not just a domestic struggle. It has become a tangled web of international interventions, each with its own interests and agendas. These external actors have often exacerbated the violence, further complicating the path to peace. One of the most prominent interventions has been that of Israel. The Israeli military has conducted numerous airstrikes and ground incursions into Syrian territory. Their targets are often Iranian-backed militias operating in Syria. However, these actions risk escalating the conflict and drawing in regional powers. Russia, a staunch ally of the Assad regime, has also been heavily involved in the conflict. Their military intervention, which began in 2015, has been crucial in propping up Assad's forces. Russia's presence has significantly altered the balance of power in the war. The United States, while less directly involved militarily, has provided support to certain rebel groups. Their involvement, however, has been criticized for lacking a clear strategy and for contributing to the fragmentation of the opposition. The Syrian conflict highlights the dangers of external interventions. Often, these actions prolong the suffering and make finding a peaceful resolution even more challenging.